Welcome back to Bible Basics. Thank you again for watching another video. Today is a bit of an update video on our life, and that's what this channel is going to pretty much be for the next couple years, is half videos teaching Bible and half updates on our life, our family and I. Today's been different. Today we woke up for the first time in nearly 5.5 years, and I'm not a pastor anymore. For a long time now, I've pastored Landmark Baptist Church here in Cleburne, Texas, and God's been more than good to us. The church has more than tripled in size, and training preacher boys and souls being saved, and just all across the board, God's been good. And really, that's something that we're going to have to work on. As a big part of my identity for the last several years now has been pastoring Landmark Baptist Church and loving on the people, and them loving on us, and teaching and preaching and discipling, and that chapter has now closed in our lives. So that's something we're going to have to adjust to. So the question now is, what's next? What are we doing? We spent a good amount of time last night with our church. We're really kind of just describing the process to them, working through the process. I've realized as we're doing this, as God has called us into the mission field, He has called my family and I to go to the Netherlands. I realize that now when I say that, a lot of people don't fully know what that means. They don't fully understand what all that entails. So this video, I'm going to give you a brief rundown on the word deputation. What is deputation? That's a word that I kind of throw around easily because for years I've known roughly what it is. Of course, now I'm getting more of a crash course in exactly what it is. So I'll give you a little bit of a rundown what missionary deputation is, how it works, kind of our expectations going into it, our goals, that sort of stuff. That way you can understand where we're at. And maybe if you're praying about being a missionary, going to the mission field, maybe this is a good, helpful video for you. So at this point, it has been public information for right at 5 weeks. So 5 weeks ago, yesterday, we announced it publicly that we are going to be stepping down from pastoring and going into the mission field. We let everybody know that God has called us to the Netherlands. And at that point, we loosely talked about our plans. We gave, a 5-week notice to our church, did everything we could do above board. We're helping the church to a certain degree, where we can, help them find a new pastor with advice, that kind of stuff. But at this point now, as of yesterday, last day pastoring, we are now on full-time deputation. So here's what that means. So in order to go to the Netherlands, we need support. For the most part, the Netherlands is a difficult country to get into. Historically, it's very challenging to get into unless you meet a certain criteria. You're a very high-end software developer, something like that. But if you're just going to go in and say, I'm just going to work at Taco Bell or I'm going to work in a warehouse, they'll decline your visa. It's hard to get in that way because they don't want you taking Dutch jobs. So we have to raise support before we get there. And even then, we have to be kind of creative on how we enter the country. But the idea is we want to go there. We want to plant a church. We want to get people saved, train them, disciple them, hopefully use them to start more churches. That's our long-term goals. But in order to do that, we have to do what's called deputation. So deputation is a process where you pretty much travel the country, going church to church, trying to schedule out a full, schedule of meetings throughout the years, and you need to raise support. You got to go and present your ministry. You have to kind of introduce yourself. You have to show a missionary video. You have to talk about your plans to the country, why God has called you to that country. Present everything you can in whatever amount of time that pastor gives you for that slot. Sometimes you'll have 30 minutes to talk about it. Sometimes you'll have 5 minutes to talk about it. But during that time, you have an opportunity to let the church know what God has laid on your heart. So then at that point, at some point after that, the church is going to decide whether or not they want to support you and your family. So some churches will support $50 a month, some $200 a month, some more, some less. So there's not really a hard, fast rule on it. It's more of what the church is able to do and what they're willing to do at that time. So essentially, we're going to need roughly somewhere between 100 and maybe even 120 churches on the high end. Our goal is more of 100 churches to support us, to get us to the field. That money is going to go to support our family over in the Netherlands, but also that money is going to go toward help. It has to, rent the church property, church utilities, tracts, Bibles, all that kind of stuff is going to come out of the ministry account there. So to give you an idea what deputation looks like, I'll give you kind of a brief idea of what our upcoming schedule looks like. I did post it on my Facebook, so if you want to go there and look at that, by all means, go and see our next month's calendar. I will say so far, God has been very good to us. We did not know what to expect when we started filling out a schedule. We've never done this before, never done Deputation before. So about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I guess right about 4 weeks ago now, I started making some phone calls to different churches that I'm familiar with and maybe some that were recommended to me. So far, in the last month now, we've got 70 churches scheduled. So that's very good for us. I have nothing to compare that to, but I know to me that feels good. Amen. So pretty much for the first 6 months, we're pretty much booked out solid, which is very exciting on our end. There's probably 3 or 4 services kind of sprinkled in randomly that we'd still like to get filled, but for the most part, we're booked pretty solid. And after that, it's still booked out pretty solid for the next couple months, and then it thins out a little bit come June or so. But essentially, here's our plan. We're going to be in Palestine, Texas this Wednesday with Pastor Andrew Stoddard out there. Then we're going to be in Burleson on Sunday morning there at McPherson Road Baptist Church with Brother Jonathan Mann. Then after that, we're going to start heading east. Essentially, what Deputation is going around again, raising support. So that means for a good portion of this, we're going to be kind of living out of suitcases. So we're going to be living in hotels or motels or missions apartments or Airbnbs, that kind of thing, as we travel the country. So we're going to go to Tyler, Texas Sunday night because we're going east. We're going to stay in Shreveport for a night. There's a good church there in Shreveport. It's allowing us to stay in a missions apartment that night. And then eventually on Wednesday, we're going to be in Georgia. And in Georgia, we have a missions conference. And eventually, we're going to go to North Carolina, then South Carolina, then Georgia again, and South Carolina, North Carolina, kind of staying in that area. Eventually, for October, we're going to be there in Missouri for most of that. Got several missions conferences in Missouri, slowly going to Kentucky, and then back to Tennessee, and then back to Georgia eventually, that South Carolina area. And I mean, essentially, that's going to be our life for a little while. I've had a lot of people ask me, how long are you going to do Deputation? The short answer is as long as it takes to raise the support needed. If you did that in a week, great. That's not going to happen. But if you did, that's fine with me. And if it takes longer, it takes longer. My goal is 18 months. It seems like that's a possible goal. I think when I look at the numbers and look at how many churches we can go into on a regular basis, 18 months seems possible. With people I've talked to in a similar situation that we are, that seems like they were able to do it around that amount of time. So if we can do it in 18 months, that's how long it's going to take to raise support. And then, of course, you have to start the whole process of, moving over there, applying for your visas, getting your visas, finding a place to live, all that kind of stuff. But I want to give just that brief idea of what Deputation is, because a lot of people, when I said we're going to the Netherlands, they were thinking, next week you're moving to the Netherlands? I wish, but no. It is a process, and this is a process that I think a lot of missionaries dread. So far, I'm not planning on dreading it. Of course, that could always change. But at the same time, my goal throughout this Deputation process is in a way to kind of take our time. Now, if you look at our schedule, it doesn't look like we're taking our time. We are booked solid, but we're trying to, a lot of times on Sundays, just go to one church, get to know the church, get to know the pastor, get to spend all day with one church. There'll be times where we do split services where we have a Sunday morning at one church and a Sunday night at another church, but a lot of them I'm really trying just to book Sunday. So obviously that limits the number of churches you can go to in a year, cuts your Sundays in half. But at the same time, I have a 5-year-old girl and a 7-year-old girl. I have a wife. I'm not trying to drive 8 hours every day. I'm not trying to go back and forth and set up our table, put up our table, go drive 2 hours to the next church on Sunday night, do it again. I'm trying to make sure my family's good during this process. I want our girls to still love ministry when this is all said and done. Right now, they love church. They love the things of God. Right now, most of our meetings are pretty close to each other, kind of making a small trail across the country. And God's been really good there. But I wanted to let you know about that. If you have any questions about Deputation, I've realized the more that I've talked about this, the more people just don't really know what it is. They don't really know all the ins and outs. But that's the basic idea is we're going to go to different missions conferences. We're going to go to different just church services. These pastors are allowing us to present. They're taking care of us. They're putting us in hotels or Airbnbs or missions apartments, something along those lines. And throughout this whole process, it's been an honor and a blessing to me to get to know these pastors. we'll call on the phone, and what I think is going to be a 2-minute conversation, we end up talking for an hour and just laughing together and talking about ministry. And I'm excited to get to know these pastors. I'm excited to meet them in person for the first time, and some of them I do know, and some of them I don't know. So with this deputation process, I'm trying not to dread it, because when we get to the field, our family, we're going to need as many friends as we can get. We're going to need friends that we can call on a regular basis, and they'll text us encouragement, and we can reach out, and we're going to need those connections. So part of deputation is not just raising support, but it's also raising support not only financially, but also in prayer. We need more people praying for us. Money can help get us to the field to a certain degree, but prayer is what keeps you on the field. So we're going to need that in the Netherlands. It's a very spiritually dark country, so definitely need that there. But also along the way, we want to make friends, because that's also going to help keep us on the field. It's going to keep us encouraged, and it's going to help people help us along the way as they want to help serve missions. But again, if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. I want to help people through this process. I realize a lot of people, it's a very unfamiliar territory. You maybe have heard the term deputation, but you don't really know what that entails. Now, every missionary does deputation probably slightly differently. There's not necessarily a right and wrong way to do it. I do think there are some wrong ways to do it. But for the most part, as long as you're in a certain area, then you're pretty much good to go. So we ask you, though, to pray with us. Pray with us, pray for us. This is going to be a process. We're talking, even if the goal of 18 months happens, that's still a year and a half of my family living out of suitcases. It's a year and a half of us not having a home. It's a year and a half of my wife not having a kitchen and, things to cook and to take care of the house. And she loves doing that. And, we're not going to have our piano keyboard to my wife and kids to practice all the time. So it's a year and a half of just being totally displaced, and pretty much everything you own being in the back of a car. The house is being sold. Most of the stuff in the house is sold. We still have a few things left to go this week. But it's going to be different. It's going to be very different. So we do ask for your prayers, ask for your support. Anything we can do for you, please let me know. But again, any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you have a good day, and God bless.